Too many names, too many funerals, too many closed cases wrapped in silence. In every major scandal, there's always one question people whisper when the headlines die down: who didn't make it out alive? But when it comes to the Clintons, that question doesn't just echo, it multiplies. From the 1980s in Arkansas, to the halls of Washington, to private jets and prison cells, people who got too close to their orbit didn't just disappear from politics. They vanished from existence. The official stories say heart attacks, plane crashes, freak accidents, and suicides. But behind the headlines is a list that's grown so long it stopped looking like coincidence. Vince Foster, Deputy White House Counsel, found dead with a gun in his hand and no fingerprints. Ruled a suicide despite missing files and FBI agents reporting pressure to alter evidence. Ron Brown, Commerce Secretary, killed in a plane crash, except X-rays showed a hole in his skull that looked a lot like a bullet. Seth Rich, a young DNC staffer, gunned down in the street. Nothing stolen, no arrests. Rumors swirled he was the source of the DNC leaks that shook the 2016 election. And then there's Jeffrey Epstein, the man who knew everyone, the man who said he had dirt on the world's elite, the man who didn't kill himself. Or did he? Dozens of others. Journalists, bodyguards, political operatives, mistresses, accountants, pilots, all dead. Many were about to testify. Some were under investigation. Some had just spoken out. The pattern is hard to ignore and harder to explain. A trail of freak tragedies shadowing the most scandal-ridden power couple in American political history. Or something colder, cleaner, deliberate. The question isn't if there's a body count. The question is, who's next? Long before the Clinton name filled headlines, it haunted hallways in Arkansas. The year was 1987. Bill Clinton was governor. Hillary ran legal ops through the Rose Law Firm. Together, they were rising, fast. But behind their power, a different kind of pattern was taking shape. It started with James McDougal, the man behind the Whitewater real estate deal. He financed the Clintons' land venture and helped them build wealth. But later, under federal investigation, he turned against them. In 1998, just before testifying, he suddenly collapsed in solitary confinement. The prison defibrillator had been malfunctioning. No cameras, no recordings. He died of a heart attack. He was the first high-profile associate to die while directly tied to Clinton investigations, but not the last. Years earlier, Suzanne Coleman, a 26-year-old woman with alleged ties to Bill, was found dead, a gunshot wound to the head, and reportedly 7 months pregnant. It was ruled a suicide. But locals whispered the baby wasn't just anyone's. Kathy Ferguson came next. She was the ex-wife of an Arkansas trooper who accused Bill of sexual misconduct. She publicly supported the accusations, then days later was found dead, a gunshot wound, suitcase packed beside her bed, as if she'd been planning to leave. The official report said suicide. The motive? Never confirmed. Just 5 weeks later, Bill Shelton, her fiancé, was also found dead. Another suicide. Another gun? Another sealed file? In small towns, people remember things. And by the early 90s, people had started talking. They said it was bad luck. Then they said it was a curse. Then they stopped saying anything at all. Because the closer someone got to Clinton deals, Clinton secrets, or Clinton accusations, the faster they ended up in the ground. It wasn't just criminals or whistleblowers. It was lawyers, secretaries, security guards, people whose names never made the papers until they were in the obituary section. And the more the Clintons climbed, the longer the list grew. By the time Bill took office in 1993, the body count rumors had already gone national. But no one really believed them. Not yet. It was about to change. Because the moment the Clintons entered the White House, people started dying inside it. He wasn't a whistleblower. He wasn't a criminal. He was one of them. Vince Foster had known the Clintons for years. A soft-spoken, loyal lawyer from Arkansas, brought into the heart of power when Bill became president. They trusted him, Hillary especially. Some said he was her right hand. Others said he was more than that. On July 20th, 1993, just 6 months into the Clinton presidency, Vince Foster was found dead in Fort Marcy Park, Virginia. Gunshot to the head, a revolver in his hand. No witnesses, no camera footage. And just like that, a rising political career ended under a tree. The official story? Suicide, depression, overworked. That was the narrative. Almost too fast, too clean. But the moment investigators arrived, things didn't add up. There were no fingerprints on the gun. His briefcase appeared empty, except for one note, torn into 27 pieces, claiming he couldn't take the heat. But handwriting analysts couldn't confirm it was his. His car wasn't found near the park entrance. It just appeared hours later. Early FBI memos, written by field agents, raised doubts. They said the body looked staged, that there were no signs of blood splatter near the head wound. Strange for a close-range shot. A park ranger claimed the crime scene was already too neat when he arrived. One witness said he saw a man matching Foster's description being escorted by 2 others moments before the reported time of death. But those early observations vanished, rewritten in later summaries. Dozens of documents misplaced. 2 sets of official reports, one for public release, one that never saw daylight, and something even darker. When the park police requested assistance from the FBI, White House counsel Bernard Nussbaum refused to let them examine Foster's office. Instead, staffers, under Hillary's authority, entered the room, removed files, and cleared his desk. Some of those documents were reportedly about the Travelgate and Whitewater scandals, both directly tied to the Clintons. By the time law enforcement was allowed in, the room had been sterilized. No one was ever charged. Years later, under pressure, a Senate committee reopened the case. It ended with the same ruling: suicide. But by then, the damage was done. The Vince Foster death marked the first time a Clinton associate died inside the machine of power, and the response wasn't transparent. It was an obstruction. From that point forward, any death tied to the Clintons wasn't just tragedy. It was suspicion. And the list was only beginning. Because the higher they rose, the more people around them fell. It started with rumors, quiet ones, shared between retired cops, D.C. interns, and Arkansas reporters who didn't make it to cable news. Backroom jokes about Arkanside, suicide by Clinton association, a sick punchline that grew legs. Then the internet changed everything. By the late 1990s, the list started circulating in underground forums, chain emails, and early conspiracy sites. It wasn't just Vince Foster or James McDougal anymore. Dozens of names, dates, cause of death, connection to the Clintons, all laid out in plain text. At first, people called it clickbait, junk, fringe paranoia. Then someone tried to debunk it and made it worse. Because the more people tried to explain the deaths away, the more questions they raised. Take Ron Brown, Bill Clinton's Commerce Secretary. In 1996, Brown was under investigation for campaign finance violations. He hinted that if indicted, he wouldn't go down alone. That same year, his plane went down in Croatia, officially a crash caused by bad weather. Except The autopsy told another story. Military examiners found a hole in his skull, consistent with a gunshot wound. But the body was buried quickly, and the forensic examiner was silenced under military gag order. No black box, no cockpit tape. All destroyed, apparently due to fire damage. Yet the fuselage was intact. Or look at Mary Mahoney, a former White House intern turned whistleblower. In 1997, just as she was set to testify in a sexual misconduct case tied to the Clinton administration, she was found shot multiple times inside a locked coffee shop in Georgetown. Robbery was ruled out. No money taken, no fingerprints found, security camera footage gone. By the early 2000s, the list passed 30 names. By 2010, it crossed 50. Each case had a different flavor. A journalist hit by a train, a bodyguard shot during a robbery, a fundraiser drowned in a hot tub, a pilot flying a route he never flew before. But they all had one thing in common. They knew something, or they were about to say something. And when that pattern hit the open web, it exploded. Websites popped up dedicated to cataloging the deaths, complete with maps, connections, even photos. The term Clinton body count became viral, long before Twitter, long before TikTok. It made its way into Rush Limbaugh's broadcasts, Alex Jones's rants, and late-night comedy monologues. Even mainstream media had to acknowledge it, only to mock it. Unhinged conspiracy theory, they called it, baseless, tasteless, desperate. But the people keeping track, they weren't all crackpots. Some were retired military, some were former FBI, some were journalists, until they stopped writing. And behind every denial was a new name. The more the Clintons denied it, the more the internet believed it. Because by then, it wasn't just about how people died. It was about how the story kept getting buried. Washington was already on fire. The 2016 election had turned into a political war zone. Emails leaked, campaigns hacked, secrets exposed. And in the middle of it all was the Democratic National Committee, hemorrhaging credibility and scrambling for damage control. On July 10th, just 2 weeks before the DNC convention, a 27-year-old staffer named Seth Rich was shot and killed in Washington, D.C. According to police, it was a robbery gone wrong. Except nothing was stolen. Not his wallet, not his phone, not his watch, not his chain. 2 gunshots to the back, then silence. No witnesses, no leads. Just a body on the pavement at 4:20 a.m. Within days, the internet had found the breadcrumbs. Seth worked in the voter expansion division. He had high-level access to internal DNC databases, including the servers that were allegedly hacked by Russian operatives. Then came the real twist. WikiLeaks published the DNC email dump, a massive trove of internal documents exposing party favoritism, corruption, and media collusion. The Clinton campaign blamed Russia, but online, another theory surged. Seth Rich was the leaker. It didn't come from random trolls. Julian Assange himself hinted at it. In an interview so calculated, it sounded like a warning. "Our sources take risks," he said. And there's a 27-year-old who worked for the DNC who was shot in the back for what seemed like nothing. I'm suggesting that our sources face serious risks, and they have to be protected. Assange never confirmed it, but WikiLeaks offered a $20,000 reward for information on Seth's killer, a move they'd never done for any random robbery victim. Suddenly, the Clinton body count wasn't a relic. It was front page. Again, Fox News reported that Seth had contact with a known WikiLeaks intermediary, then retracted it under pressure. The Rich family was flooded with media. Lawsuits flew. D.C. police sealed the autopsy report. FBI insiders leaked that Seth's laptop was taken, and that it showed email transfers. Then that report disappeared too. Every time someone got close to connecting the dots, they were silenced, sued, or scrubbed. And as the Clinton campaign denied, discredited, and deflected, something became unmistakably clear. Seth Rich wasn't supposed to become a story, but his death breathed oxygen into a theory that had gone dormant. And just as it reached a boiling point, another name returned. A man who knew everyone, a man who kept tapes, a man sitting in a New York jail cell, waiting to talk. Jeffrey Epstein. By the time Jeffrey Epstein was arrested in 2019, he was no longer just a financier. He was a symbol of untouchable power, political blackmail, and classified connections no one wanted to acknowledge. He had friends in every corner of the elite world: Trump, Gates, Hollywood, British royals, and yes, Bill Clinton. Officially, Clinton flew on Epstein's private jet, nicknamed the Lolita Express, at least 26 times. Unofficially, some say it was more. Flight logs show overlapping trips. Photos emerged of Clinton getting a massage from one of Epstein's accusers. And in court documents, multiple witnesses said Epstein bragged about his connections to the White House, even claiming he had dirt on more than one U.S. president. But when Epstein was arrested in July 2019, something changed. For a moment, the system blinked. He was denied bail, locked in a high-security jail. A trial was set, testimonies were lined up, and then, on August 10th, the unthinkable happened. Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his cell. The official report? Suicide by hanging. But within hours, it unraveled. The cameras facing his cell malfunctioned. The guards assigned to check on him fell asleep. The cellmate was transferred hours before. The bed sheets weren't strong enough to hold body weight, and the autopsy showed neck fractures more consistent with strangulation. Even the medical examiner who signed the death certificate, Dr. Michael Baden, later went on record to say it didn't look like suicide. In over 50 years of doing autopsies, this is the most suspicious death I've ever seen. Online, the reaction was instant. 3 words echoed across the world. He didn't kill himself. It became a meme, a hashtag, a war cry, because everyone knew no one like Epstein dies in jail unless someone wants him dead. And yet, no one was held accountable. No trial, no deeper investigation. Ghislaine Maxwell was later convicted, but the client list? Sealed. To this day. And Bill Clinton? He denied ever visiting Epstein's island. Despite flight logs, despite staff witnesses, despite photos, not a single mainstream outlet pushed further. Not a single political ally demanded answers. Epstein died. And with him, every secret he carried. About presidents, billionaires, royalty, and why so many people around the Clintons die just before they speak. The world moved on, but the theory didn't die. In fact, it became folklore. A new generation learned the pattern, and suddenly, the Clinton body count wasn't just a conspiracy. It was a warning. Not every story ends with a scandal. Some just end, silently, suddenly, without a headline. These are the names that don't make it onto most Clinton body count lists, not because they're irrelevant, but because they're too quiet to detect. Start with Barry Seal, a drug smuggler turned DEA informant. He flew for the Medellin cartel, for the CIA, and allegedly for covert U.S. operations tied to the Clinton-era Arkansas airfields, namely MENA. Seal was arrested. He agreed to testify. Then, in 1986, gunned down outside a halfway house. No security, no protection. Despite knowing too much about CIA operations during Bill Clinton's governorship, His personal plane logbook, rumored to include names of politicians connected to drug flights, disappeared after his death. Then there's John Ashe, former UN General Assembly President. In 2016, just days before testifying in a corruption case tied to Chinese Clinton Foundation donors, he was found dead, crushed by a barbell. The official report? Accidental weightlifting death. He wasn't a bodybuilder. He was 61. No witnesses. The dumbbell, according to insiders, fell on his throat. Another curious case. Sean Lucas, a process server who personally delivered a lawsuit to the DNC over election fraud, implicating Debbie Wasserman Schultz and, indirectly, Hillary's campaign. A month later, he was found dead on his bathroom floor. Toxicology sealed. Cause of death, undetermined. And what about Klaus Eberwein, a Haitian government official who publicly claimed the Clinton Foundation embezzled earthquake relief funds? He promised to testify. A week before his appearance, he was found dead in a Miami hotel room. Gunshot wound to the head, ruled suicide. No note, no motive. Just another ghost in the long trail of silence. You won't find these names on CNN. They're not on late-night punchlines, but they're real. Their deaths are real. And they follow a pattern. Each had a direct or indirect connection to Clinton-era corruption. Each died just before a major testimony, document leak, or deposition. Each death was labeled accidental, suicide, or natural causes, without deeper scrutiny. And these are only the ones that were identified. For every name on the internet's body count lists, how many are missing? Pilots who changed their route once. Assistants who saw one email. Security agents who overheard one conversation. Tech workers who recovered one deleted file. They're the unlisted. Because they don't get remembered. They get replaced. But in the shadows, they add weight to the theory, like bricks on a scale that was never meant to be balanced. And if they were silenced to protect something, what exactly was it? You can dismiss one death. You can explain two, maybe even three, if you believe in bad luck. But what happens when the deaths don't just pile up? They follow a structure? Let's lay it bare. 1. The timing. Most of these deaths occur right before major events. A testimony, a court appearance, a leak. They don't happen months later or years after the fact. They happen days before something's about to go public. 2. The methods. The patterns don't vary much. Gunshot wounds ruled suicides. Plane crashes with missing black boxes. Single-car accidents on empty roads. Sudden heart attacks in healthy people with no prior conditions. Or the classic robbery gone wrong, where nothing is taken. 3. The victim profiles. They're rarely random civilians. They're insiders, people with access, people with data, people with motives to speak or incentives to stay quiet until they don't. 4. The aftermath. Autopsy sealed, reports altered, witnesses recant, journalists drop the story, investigations closed faster than they begin. And anyone who pushes too hard, discredited, demonized, or coincidentally faces their own legal issues. It's not just a body count anymore. It's a playbook, a slow, grinding erasure of risk, one death at a time. And every time the story starts to gain traction, something distracts the world. A war, a scandal, a sudden media frenzy. The timeline resets, the trail gets cold, but the list, it keeps growing. Because the truth is, if even 10% of these deaths are connected, that's still a conspiracy larger than anything America admits exists. And yet, it's never investigated, because it doesn't need to be. It's written off as conspiracy theory, laughed out of the newsroom, filed under paranoid those internet nonsense. That's the brilliance of it. Because if you kill enough people and deny everything and make the list long enough, you don't have to hide the truth. You just bury it in plain sight. It's not bad luck. Not this many, not this often, not this quietly. Too many people connected to the Clintons end up dead. Not enemies, insiders, staffers, lawyers, lovers, pilots, the ones who knew too much or were about to say too much. They don't die in courtrooms. They don't die on the record. They die in parks, hotel rooms, plane crashes, empty intersections. And every time, it's ruled the same way. Suicide, accident, robbery, natural causes. Nothing taken, no suspects. Case closed until the next one. And always just before, something's about to surface. A deposition, a leak, a trial, a name. It's not the death that matters. It's the timing. It's the silence that follows. People don't investigate. They disappear. Witnesses don't testify. They retract. Journalists don't ask questions. They resign. Over time, the list becomes the message. Not a theory. A warning. You don't cross the machine. You don't speak out. And if you do, you don't last. The Clintons may not be the architects, but they've played the game long enough to know how it works. Some call it coincidence. Others call it arkanside. But everyone knows what happens when you get too close. You don't get justice. You get remembered on a list.